thank you guys for clicking on the video. I am Sully, and today, fellas, we're going to get into this Manhood series finally. I've been putting it off, just other things came up, so now we're going to get into it, and I want to talk about girls. That's right, the thing that makes us all crazy, the tang to our applesauce. We're going to dive into it, and I first want to talk about why you shouldn't put your identity in girls, because from what I've seen, fellas, guys go crazy, and you see it on Twitter. You know, guys get rejected by girls and their lives shut down. I mean, they come to a screeching halt. And I want to talk about just why it's unhealthy to put your identity in girls. And I'm not going to get into all the particulars. I just want to talk about my experience, and I hope it helps you guys. So let's jump into it. So for girls, you know, I think it's interesting. We want someone to love us. I think we have that desire where we want someone to approve of us more than just friends, more than just all that nonchalant stuff. We want a girl to love us, or, you know, whatever suits you. And I think when that doesn't happen, we think we're not good enough, because we picture that girl to be the end-all be-all. You know, we think she's perfect. It don't get no better. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. And, you know, just in the Christian community, what they tell you is what you ideally want to do is you want to, you know, pursue God, pursue Christ the best you can. Look over to your right, and if you see there's a young little damn piece that works well with you, then that's your relationship. And some of you guys aren't, you know, Christian, so we're not gonna get into, I think, pursuing God. But let's talk about being your own person. I think knowing who you are is such a huge part of being in a relationship, and a lot of people don't necessarily believe that. But if you don't take time to develop yourself and work on yourself, you will continually put your identity in things that won't reward you or won't support you. And with girls, I think guys have this natural tendency to build up a relationship like a fairy tale. They think, oh, I'm just gonna meet this girl, we're gonna fall in love, and that will be the end of it. But it doesn't always work out with that fairy tale story. And so let's just talk about the downfalls. I think once you get in a relationship, sometimes even I fall into these things where we think, oh, you know, it's gonna be great, happy stories, nothing but rainbows and lollipops and sugar canes. And while that's true, that, you know, there's still relationships that break up. There's still relationships that don't work out, marriages end in divorce, and so there's still failure even once you get into that relationship. And I think the most important thing is that you're secure in yourself, that you know who you are, you know what you can bring to a relationship, and know what you need to be complimented on, that's maybe your weaknesses. Because anytime you think this girl is going to make you perfect, that's not the case. And I think that's our natural tendency, again, is we think that a girl, when we come into a relationship, this girl is going to make everything great, she's going to make everything perfect, and that's not necessarily the case. And when you don't know who you are, and when you're not secure in who you are and what you bring to a relationship, you see the pitfalls, right? We've seen people on Twitter where they have a total falling out of who they are, and they just go into ultimate shutdown mode, and it devastates them. And what typically happens with that is that they just go from relationship to relationship, and I don't think there's a security within themselves. Because if someone breaks up with you, you should be hurt. I'm not saying that, you know, there shouldn't be any fallout from that, there shouldn't be any consequences, or you shouldn't feel any emotion. But what I am saying is there are people who shut down in all aspects of life because of a breakup. And let me just say, at the age we're all at, you know, I'm in my early 20s, you guys may be in, you know, your late teens or early teens. Your life still has a long way to go, and just because one girl says you're not for me doesn't mean now that suddenly you're not meant to be in a relationship, or you don't deserve love or any of this stuff. But I think we jump to those conclusions, and then, you know, what I've seen is that we resort to permanent solutions to a temporary problem. You know, people get very depressed, people, you know, contemplate suicide, they think all hope's gone. And it's one person's opinion, and it's not even of your self-worth. What they're saying is, you're just not for me. You're just not my cup of tea. You know, when we reject a meal or something, we're not saying the meal is bad or it's terrible. We're just saying, hey, it ain't for me. So, you know, it's like, you know, a great example is like, you know, the Xbox One, PS4. You know, people don't know what to get. We're sort of scrambling, going crazy over this. We don't know what to get. We're up in arms. And you know, for me, I was Xbox One, now I'm PS4, but you know, just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's bad. And so I think we have to keep that mindset and be focused on that, because if we don't understand that just because an opinion doesn't dictate your self-worth, if you think that's true, you're gonna live a life that's gonna go heavily of ups and downs, and because people will fail you. And so once they fail you, if you don't know how to deal with that, even in friendships, whether it's not ladies, if you have a friend who fails you and you don't know how to cope with that, and you just say, and I've done this, I've been guilty of this in the past, where I just say, all right, I'm done with you, I'm not talking to you, that hurts the relationship, and it hurts you more than you think it helps. And so I want to talk about now, you know, how should you approach girls? How should you, you know, we all like to get in a little bit with the ladies, but how should you deal with that, and how should you come to approach it? Well, I think first, I've harped on earlier, I'm just going to continue to do it. You need to know who you are as a man, and what you bring to the table in a relationship, and what you're capable of, and know yourself and your identity. What are your likes, your dislikes? You know, what do you have that's different than other guys? I think that's a huge thing. I think guys don't really know what they can do differently than others. They don't know what their strong suits are. When you don't know that, it's hard to approach a lady for a relationship, because I think naturally girls want a leader, and if you don't know how to lead or know how to you know, I guess be that male leader that she wants you to be, the relationship will grind and it will fall out. So know who you are, you know what you bring to the table in a relationship, and I would just say, don't get into a relationship on a whim. Don't just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna date this girl because it's convenient, because I think that mindset sort of creates harm in a relationship. Because I think if you go into it with like, you know, it's like, best case scenario, we date for a few months, I think you will develop feelings. I think if she just says, you know, yeah, we're just going into this relationship as a whim, you know, it could come back to hurt you. So know what your intentions are for the ladies. You know, that's a huge thing. And I think, you know, wrapping up, the biggest thing I can tell you guys, just from my personal experience, is, guys, don't ever let one person dictate how you should live your whole life. If it doesn't work out with one lady, that doesn't mean you need to change forever, you know, across the board with the girls. And I think that's a huge thing, because I've seen it on Twitter, you guys have seen it, where one person's rejection leads to a total malfunction of their whole life, and that should never happen. So let's recap what are 3 things that we can do to just be in the best spot for a relationship and not set up for failure if it doesn't work out. I would say 1, know who you are, know your weaknesses and your strengths, know what you're capable of, be confident in your strengths, and be humble in your weaknesses. That's number 1. Number 2 on this manhood series with the ladies, I think, have reasonable expectations. Understand that you're both human, things will go wrong. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Just have reasonable expectations for a relationship, and I didn't touch on this, but be direct, be intentional. Don't just do things on a whim because it feels great or whatever. Be intentional. And lastly, I think number 3 would be, if I had to give one last thing of advice with the ladies, is understand that they're human, that a relationship, that girls will fail, but that doesn't mean that you're a failure or they're a failure. Because if you live your life like that, I've already said it once, you know, it's gonna be a lot of highs and lows. So have reasonable expectations, be confident, know who you are, and understand they're human. I think girls, you know, you'll approach girls differently, and it can help you with rejection, because I think, once again, rejection hurts, but it shouldn't shut you down forever. So guys, let's be some leaders out there. Let's show the girls what we're capable of. And I think, you know, putting relationships in the right mindset, that they don't define us, but they should support us, I think you guys will be coming out on top. So I hope you guys have a great day. Drop a comment below or a like if this video helped you, and also let me know if my tips were good. Am I crazy? Am I just coming up with this stuff out of the blue, or was it actually making sense to you? I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. I'm Sully. God bless.